I'm now joined by Fred Fleitz, a former National Security Council member during Donald Trump's first term. Fred, it's a pleasure to have you on. So, today is President Donald Trump's deadline for Vladimir Putin to agree to a ceasefire or indeed face sanctions. Is he going to make good on a promise to punish Russia after growing frustration?
Well, President Trump has made it clear that Putin has to deal. He has to agree to a ceasefire. Trump is tired of Putin disrespecting him and basically completely ignoring Trump's substantial and generous offers to Putin to end the war. And I think Trump's giving diplomacy a final chance. It's good when heads of states are talking. Let's hope if this summit takes place, there's real movement towards ending this war.
So will those sanctions come in? Yes or no?
I think they'll come in if Putin does not agree to a ceasefire.
Okay, and you have worked closely with President Trump. Is his upcoming meeting with Putin all about the optics, the performance, and the show, rather than that ceasefire deal?
Putin wanted to talk, and I think we need to look at this from a broader perspective. After February 2022, Joe Biden didn't even have a phone call with Putin. He just demonized him. We're not going to get a peace agreement unless there's dialogue. It's good that the heads of the U.S. and Russia are talking. It's good that Ukraine and Russia have had negotiations. They haven't accomplished very much, but I think this represents some movement, and maybe there'll be real movement in this first summit between Trump and Putin in Trump's second term.
But Putin, by the sounds of it, hasn't actually given any concessions at all. So is this a win for Putin that he gets to meet the world's most powerful leader without having to make any concessions?
Engaging in dialogue is not a concession by the United States, but you're right. Putin has not agreed to this ceasefire, and he's put strings attached to stopping the fighting. He's made unreasonable demands. And that's something that Trump is going to have to work through. I mean, what Trump has said, let's get an immediate ceasefire. We'll discuss all these other issues later.
Putin has been a pariah on the world stage, as you said to me, under Joe Biden. And Trump appears to be bringing him back out of the cold, back in the public eye. Will we see him berate Putin the way he berated Zelensky in the Oval Office? Or do you think the tone between Putin and Trump will be different?
Well, Trump has already criticized Putin pretty harshly over the last few weeks because Putin has refused to stop the war. He's actually accelerating it. But I think this is going to be an opportunity for diplomacy and statesmanship. Trump is trying to bring Putin along to do the right thing. And with luck, Russia will be able to rejoin the community, not just of civilized nations, but of Europe. Russia is a European state. It needs to be part of Europe. Russia should not be in the arms of the Chinese.
Right, and let's talk about Europe now, because President Trump has dismissed the idea of Putin and Zelensky meeting anytime soon. How realistic is a ceasefire deal without Ukraine and Europe at the table? As you said to me, you know, it's Russia that's European, but we know that Vladimir Putin has just held a conversation in the last hour with the Chinese leader Xi Jinping.
Well, he's had many conversations with the Chinese leader, and I've talked to many journalists who think there's something wrong with this meeting because the Europeans and the Ukrainians aren't at the bargaining table. But Trump has had many bilateral meetings with Zelensky. Why can't he have a bilateral meeting with Putin?
Well, I think a lot of people would say that it's unfair because Zelensky from Ukraine was a country that was attacked by Russia, and they deserve to be at the table because it's Europe who've been trying to protect their borders.
And Europe thinks they have to be at the table because, frankly, they don't trust Trump. This doesn't make logical sense. If Trump can meet with Zelensky one-on-one, which he's done several times, he can meet with Putin one-on-one.
So you don't think Europe trusts Donald Trump?
I think Europe has its own ideas to resolve this conflict, which have gone nowhere. Their position is not much different from Biden's, to simply arm Ukraine for as long as it takes, but nobody knows what that means, with no plan to end the conflict.
Some critics argue a one-on-one Trump-Putin meeting could undermine Western unity, and we've just been speaking about that right now. And do you think that Europe hasn't come to the table, hasn't brought enough to end this war between Russia and Ukraine? Is it down to Donald Trump now?
There were some pretty significant differences between the U.S. and Europe at the beginning of the Trump presidency, but I think Trump has brought Europe and the Ukrainians along with his approach to push for an immediate ceasefire. Europe has stopped attacking that approach. They still have their own ideas on how they would end the conflict, but they're prepared, in my opinion, to let Trump go ahead with this because, frankly, it's the only game in town. No one else has a plan to end this war.
Yes, you say it's the only game in town, but then we just don't know if anything's going to come out of it because, Fred, let's be realistic, Russia has not changed its stance in 4 years since it's attacked Ukraine.
Well, there's been small progress this year because we've had talks. We've had U.S. diplomats meeting with Putin. We've had talks between Russia and Ukraine. It hasn't accomplished much yet. But to get to a peace settlement, we have to have dialogue. And maybe this is going to take a while. And peacemaking is hard. And there was a lot of baggage Trump had to deal with the Russians. Remember, Biden used to demonize Putin, once compared Putin to Hamas. Trump has to work through all that and put together a relationship that will get Putin to say yes to peace.
Fred Fleitz, former National Security Council member, thank you for joining us and for your insights and analysis.